another episode of What's Next in Banking. We're at Standard Bank's headquarters, and we are having the most fascinating discussions and talking about, how Standard Bank is involved in different sectors of the market. And today we are joined by Elani van der Laan, who's the head of legal and accounting sectors, business and commercial banking, South Africa. That is a big title, Elani.
That is a mouthful.
What does your job include?
Well, it's a mouthful, but it's actually very simple. My job is to enable our clients in the legal and accounting sectors to really take their businesses to the growth that they want to, and making sure that we're keeping up with what they need from a banking as well as beyond banking perspective.
Fantastic. Well, for this episode, we're going to be talking about accounting. And it's incredible how accounting has evolved, right? And it's all driven by the changes in technology. And everybody thought, I remember many years doing the Chartered Accountants Institute conference, and they were all petrified of AI and it's going to make them all redundant. But actually, it's augmented their work and made them more effective in how they do work. So can you give us a summary of your perspective at Standard Bank from the accounting side? Some of the milestones and how you at Standard Bank are supporting accounting professionals get their services and grow their businesses.
Yeah, so of course, and I mean, it's a very valid point that you make in how the accounting sector has really evolved. So typically, a lot of focus was on drafting statements and accountants being bean counters, basically. To where we are today, I mean, that shift has really caused our accountants to think differently about their businesses, and they can't just rely on the mundane bean counting. They are actually now becoming strategic advisors to their clients.
Absolutely.
And now embracing AI actually to take care of the mundane, I don't want to say easy things because it's never just easy, crunching the numbers, but whatever they are able to automate in that perspective to give them more time to actually be strategic advisors to their clients. Now, what we've done as well is we have our Edge offering, which actually allows our accountants to obtain a mandate from their clients, what we call a power of accountant, to access documents, statements, etc., directly from the bank, to also aid in making that piece of drawing up statements, etc., a little bit easier, and giving them more time to actually use the data that they're getting from us and reworking to advise their clients more strategically from a business perspective.
I love the way you put it. It's strategic. It's such an important word because it really kind of focuses, and we've seen those success stories because once you've got that strategic outlook, you're able to see the business differently and advise the business owners in a different way. And I guess in the same way that accounting businesses and accountants and CAs and all these people have had to evolve, so have you. And you mentioned some very good examples of how you make it easier operationally for that entire ecosystem and the process of how you get the statements and how that all fits into the digital timeline of the functionality of being an accountant, right? Because if Standard Bank, for example, doesn't have those right tools, then you make their job a lot more difficult.
Absolutely. And I mean, they have to kind of beg their clients, wait for their clients on their timeline to actually get those documents, which makes their lives a lot harder. And then also considering the work that we're busy with in ensuring integration with the accounting software packages that our accountants and auditors use. So there's a lot of work that we are doing from our side to ensure that there is digitally enabled and integrated communication between Standard Bank and, like I said, the typical accounting packages that they would use to make sure that those interactions are also seamless between the bank and the SMEs that are serviced by the accountants as well.
Elani, where's this going? I mean, these insights are fascinating that you're sharing with us, and we know that AI and how it's changing businesses. But I imagine as well the speed at which data is moving, that then again gives that more, even a bigger strategic role for accountants to even make decisions and even forecast, right? Because now AI is involved as well. You're able to see a lot more things, provided you're using the data effectively. Where are we going with all of this?
Absolutely. And I mean, like you're saying, insights and forecasting is really a big focus for us as well. When we're looking at how we view our clients from a credit perspective, for example, an accountant is a unique type of business when you compare that to something silly. Let's say a Pick and Pay store. It's a different business model, and for us to really inform from a credit perspective as well, to say this is what a typical cycle for an accounting business or firm would look like, and these are the nuanced pieces where you might think this is a risky client to lend to, but in actual fact, this is a very typical cycle for their business to go through. And with the data that we are able to collect and analyze, the accountants would also be able to strategically advise their clients and say, we can see there's a cycle in your business. We see normally you have a dip during July and August, or July and November, and we can actually proactive say, we need to put secure funding for that specific period.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we want to use that for. We can be a bit more clever and kind of ahead of the curve when we actually get right what we want to. So I think that's a key item. And then also just looking at growth. If a firm or an accounting firm has a bunch of clients, they can actually have a look at them and say, look, these clients want to grow at this rate, which will be specific to each of those clients. And based on the financials, this is what you would need to do to actually reach that point by a specific time.
Yeah.
And so that's also very important, that we can now also use that data in that smart way to say, history has shown us X. How do we get you to Y using X and all the variable factors that we can use in the future as well to get you to Y, and what is the shortest route to that? So that's really all part of analyzing the data, putting that together, using the solutions we have at the bank to also enable that or kickstarting that plan to that growth. And I think that's the bigger part of it. It's not just looking at them and trying to give them a banking product. I think it's really trying to holistically grow these accounting practices and in giving them the tools to help their SMEs grow as well.
It's so exciting. I love talking about this because I'm very passionate about it. And of course, Standard Bank being one of the oldest banks, the biggest bank in Africa, you're sitting with so much data that you're crunching through various algorithms, and you guys have got incredible insights and a real deep understanding in the market. And you can actually start seeing things into the future, even from a procurement point of view, because you start picking up these trends, you know what's happened in the past, etc. And it's incredible the role that data is playing in forecasting and procurement and all of the things that you talk about. And I guess that your role at Standard Bank as well is you've got to be ahead of the curve. You've got to come up with products that are completely innovating all the time. Is that a challenge? I mean, how do you get that right?
I think that's definitely a challenge in some ways, but I think we tend to overcomplicate, especially accountants as a professional services sector. We kind of tend to complicate what they need and trying to build something fancy when there is a lot of solutioning that we're able to do that solves the simple stuff. So, I mean, just understanding how their businesses work is the first piece. Understanding how that works, and then building out solutions from there, freeing up their time, making sure they have access to credit, and whether that credit is in a specific form or not is not really that important, but making sure that it's specific to their firm.
Yes.
I mean, partner funding is one of those examples as well, where auditing firms do struggle to actually acquire talent because an entering partner would not necessarily have access to funding, or access to funding at a rate which is really makes sense for them to take up in order to buy into an auditing firm. And so we've put together a structure where we actually do a corporate lend in order to enable that firm to acquire the talent that they need, instead of expecting a young person to take a personal finance.
So one of my passions is small and medium-sized enterprises, and small and medium-sized businesses and enterprises is a different thing, but those small businesses and medium-sized businesses, they are the core of the economy. They are the ones employing the most people. They're driving the economy. And often people think, banks support only the big guys, and who are we small guys? We've got no chance. But actually, the technology and the innovations that we talk about have democratized accounting. So accounting is, and all of these tools that we talk about, they are there for everyone to use, right? So how do you at Standard Bank support those small, medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, so I mean, it's actually interesting, and I can't remember the exact date, but by a certain date, and I mean, it's not too far into the future, I want to say 2030 or 2035, we're expected to see that about 80% of our economy could be driven by SMEs, actually.
Yeah.
So our small, which we call small firms, but actually the volumes pick up and contribute so massively to the economy. And we at Standard Bank really value those businesses. They are actually the cornerstone for us to grow organically as well,
Yes.
to grow. And we have various initiatives that we are working on to support that that growth with our enterprise supplier development teams, our enterprise development teams, where we actually support them in their growth, whether it be by assisting with professional fees or giving them startup funding to actually start their practices as well.
That's brilliant.
Yes, and I mean, there are qualifying criteria to that, of course, because we do support transformation goals as well. But I mean, that's just tied into that as well. So we really have a magnifying glass on our small businesses to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to really support them and actually get them up and going, making sure they've got the resources to remain in business.
Look, and it's wonderful. I've been reading many of the success stories of the funding that businesses have got from Standard Bank and how they've scaled up and they've grown, which is fantastic because you guys look at it from a lens of the risk factor, et cetera, but you got the data, so you know what's happening in every sector of the market. And if you see an opportunity in a business, you go and support them. What are the big challenges that you face in your role at Standard Bank, looking at the accounting sector?
I think digital development is, in practice, is much slower than you'd expect.
Oh, really?
So I think those are some of the challenges that I do face. I think also there is a lack of funding still for new businesses and accounting practices, which we're looking to close the gap on as well. I think they are kind of overlooked when it comes to businesses that do require funding as well. They're not necessarily typical borrowers or just borrow for fun, but I think there is still a lot of merit in making sure that their businesses are growing at the rate that they would like, and that they're also using those financing options in a clever way to actually grow their businesses, as opposed to using their own capital and putting that into their businesses. So I think that's still a challenge. I think there is still a lot of work to be done and a lot of room for improvement in actually to make sure that finance options to our accounting practices are at an optimal level, where we would like to see them as well. So I think that's one of the challenges that I would like to really amplify as well in the years to come.
The recent COP summit in Baku was quite fascinating. It was interesting to see how much funding we're getting as a continent, and those ESG targets, environmental, social governance that we're talking about, and that 2030 number is just looming ahead of us, and we know there are challenges with global warming, there are challenges with the environment, and sustainability is so important for every business. We all as citizens, have this deep it's very important for all of us to look at sustainability very seriously. And all these businesses, small, medium, large, they all need to do it. How do you guys at Standard Bank support it? Because your ESG targets 2030, you guys are spending a lot of money on that, and it's a massive focus for the bank. But you also want the businesses that you are financing to be part of that movement as well, which is critical for the goodness of the world that we're living in, right?
Yeah, so I mean, and that's the nicest goal actually to focus on, because I think most people are passionate about promoting and making sure that our footprint is as little as possible. When we look at accounting practices, and people, it's always funny because people say, there's no load shedding anymore, so we don't need solar panels and all of that. When actually we need to start changing our mindsets about it, and that will be and has been a big focus for me as well, to say, why are we only doing that out of survival? Why are we not looking at, first of all, the savings that we can still achieve when we are powering up our own buildings, whether it be for work or home, but specifically for accounting firms? Why are we not using technology instead of printing every single thing?
Right.
Why are we not using systems to actually store our documents more adequately in order to save on printing? But really actually looking at putting systems in place. And that's a framework that I've been working on with our other teams within the bank as well, to say, what can we really do holistically for a firm, or put together for them, so that they can actually also assist us to achieve our ESG targets, but also from within their own businesses to be able to say, we are really sustainable from an ESG perspective as well. We power ourselves up, we conserve water in this way, in this or that manner. And so that is a big focus for us. And we'll be looking at that from a really small firm perspective and building right up to our corporates to say, what would let's call it an ESG plan look like for your specific firm?
Yeah. What's your advice to people, professional accountants, professional accounting practices? What advice do you give to those firms who want to remain competitive? They want to thrive in the economy, but you and I know that if you don't adapt to the changes that are happening around us, you will be left behind. So you've got to take it with an open-minded approach. What would your advice be to accounting professionals?
So I always advise them to think outside of the box when it comes to delivering a service to their clients. Don't just think about the standard or the normal way of doing business. You'll know where there's a niche within your firm that your clients appreciate and like about you, and use that to build that on your business. Use that to really give that signature service to your clients. And then embrace AI, where you're able to embrace it so that you don't have to spend time on the mundane tasks, so you can really get stuck into assisting your clients in really growing their businesses. Clients moreover go to the accountants for strategic advice, how to grow their businesses, how to fix something within their businesses, how to generate efficiency. And then in doing so, also, when you are using AI, use outside parties if you have to, or if you need to. Partner with other teams, whether it be for compliance or tax. If you're not able to afford a tax specialist in your practice, go into partnership with someone that will be able to assist you with that, to really expand the type of strategic advice that you'd be able to give to your clients. And I think that would be my advice to accountants. And then this is advice I give in both of my sectors as well, is to say, be intentional about what you want to do with your firm. Don't just assume everybody wants to be a massive corporate. They don't want to be that necessarily. Some firms want to remain niche, want to remain boutique, and be intentional about what that looks like for you. Do you want to be massive? Do you want to grow up until a certain point and then stay with just a few quality clients? Be intentional about that when you are growing your business. Don't just kind of go ahead and see what happens. Be intentional about what you want to do.
I love that. That's such great advice. Intentional gives the whole, the whole look purpose, and it's brilliant. I love that. That's absolutely great advice. Elani van der Laan, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Elani van der Laan, who is the head of legal and accounting services here and the sectors for business and commercial banking at Standard Bank, really sharing an insight into an industry that's just seen so much rapid adoption of technology. The accounting sector is certainly not what it was a decade ago, or even 5 years ago, or even a year ago. But be intentional about how you take the approach to growing your business and adapting to the changes around us. Thank you for joining us.